When we think about the founding of America, it's easy to picture it as just one single story. But that's not really how it happened. In the 17th century, the settlement of North America was way more like 4 different experiments, all running at the same time with totally different goals and, well, totally different results. And that brings up a really fascinating question.
Right? How did all these different groups of people showing up on the same continent at roughly the same time end up building worlds that were almost nothing alike? The answer, as we're about to see, is all in their original blueprints, the unique game plan each one brought with them from the old world.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start in the South, where it was all about getting rich. Then we'll head up to the super religious North. After that, we'll check out the diverse Middle Colonies, and even take a quick look at what the French were doing in Quebec before we tie it all together.
Okay, so just picture it. It's the 1600s. For European powers, North America is this huge new frontier. But here's the key. They aren't all showing up for the same party. Some came for gold, some came for God, and others were just there to grab resources. And those founding motives, they ended up shaping, well, pretty much everything.
So let's start with the first permanent English colony, Virginia. It was founded by the Virginia Company, and you can basically think of them as a 17th century startup with a very, very clear mission: make a profit for their investors back home in England. Simple as that.
The original business plan was incredibly simple. Find gold. There was just one teeny tiny problem. There wasn't any gold. The whole colony was literally on the verge of collapsing until they found a different kind of gold: tobacco. Now, this cash crop saved Virginia for sure, but its cultivation was absolutely brutal and labor-intensive. It created a society with huge gaps between the rich and poor, and it paved the way for a tragic, deep-seated dependence on enslaved labor.
And think about the logistics here. The Virginia Company is thousands of miles away in London. There's no way they can manage the day-to-day squabbles of a colony. So their solution was completely practical, not some grand idea about democracy. They set up the House of Burgesses to handle local laws. And boom, just like that, out of pure necessity, the very first seeds of American self-government were planted.
Okay, now this is a really crucial turning point. You have all these landless former indentured servants, and they're frustrated. They want land, which leads to clashes with Native Americans on the frontier. When the governor sides with the rich planters, the poor colonists rebel. Now, after that rebellion gets crushed, the wealthy elite make this incredibly calculated and, frankly, chilling move. They pass new laws designed to harden the lines of race and slavery, basically to drive a permanent wedge between poor white people and enslaved black people, making sure they would never, ever unite against the ruling class again.
All right, so let's leave the tobacco fields of Virginia behind. We're going to head north up the coast to a place that was being built on a completely different and much, much stricter foundation. Welcome to New England. Now, the Puritans who settled Massachusetts couldn't have been more different from the Virginia colonists. They weren't looking for profit. They were on a mission from God. They came to build what they saw as a perfect religious community, a city on a hill that was supposed to be a shining example to the rest of the world.
So unlike the single guys looking to get rich quick down in Virginia, the Puritans showed up as entire families. They wanted a better life, sure, but their number one goal was to practice their very specific faith without anyone interfering. But, and this is a big but, they only wanted their faith to be practiced freely. There was absolutely no room for anyone who disagreed.
And you know what's so ironic about this? Their extreme intolerance actually backfired. People who dared to question the strict Puritan leaders, guys like Roger Williams, they got kicked out. But they didn't just vanish. They went off and founded new colonies, like Rhode Island, based on the totally radical idea of religious tolerance. So, in a weird way, the Puritan strictness actually sowed the seeds of religious diversity in the region. But life in this city on a hill was also incredibly violent. King Philip's War was a brutal, devastating conflict. While the colonists suffered heavy losses, for the region's Native American population, it was an absolute catastrophe. The end of the war was a grim turning point, one that permanently cemented English control over all of southern New England. And in the middle of all this fear and instability, you get this dark, dark chapter in American history, really all summed up by one single chilling number. 19. 19 people were hanged during the Salem witch trials. And this mass hysteria didn't just come out of nowhere. It was a perfect storm of extreme religious belief, the social stress of a growing population, lingering fear from conflicts with Native Americans, and a super-rigid society that gave women almost no power or opportunities.
So, we've seen the profit-driven South and the pious North. Now let's head to the region that was, in a lot of ways, a mix of both, and also something completely new.
The Mid-Atlantic colonies. We're talking New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware. These were America's original melting pots. Their blueprint wasn't based on one single crop or one rigid religion. It was all about commerce, diversity, and a kind of practical, get-along attitude you just didn't see in their neighbors. Take New York. It actually started out as New Amsterdam, a Dutch trading post built for one reason and one reason only: to do business. So when the English took it over in 1664, they were smart enough not to mess with a good thing. Its amazing natural harbor made it a powerhouse of commerce, connecting all the farms inland to markets all over the world.
And then you have Pennsylvania, which is just a whole other story. It was founded by the Quaker William Penn, and for them, religious freedom wasn't some reluctant compromise. It was the entire point. This intentional policy of tolerance was a huge contrast to Puritan New England, and it acted like a magnet, pulling in immigrants from all over Europe and making Pennsylvania maybe the most diverse and dynamic colony of them all.
Okay, now before we compare these English models, we've got to take a quick look north at a totally different imperial strategy. The French also had a major presence on the continent, but their blueprint for Quebec was driven by, you guessed it, a completely different goal.
For France, North America wasn't really a place to build a new society from the ground up. It was a massive warehouse full of resources to be exploited. The settlement of Quebec was all about controlling the incredibly profitable fur trade. Their goal was to build a commercial network to make the French crown rich, not to build a new world of towns and farms.
So, we've basically journeyed through 4 very different colonial worlds, each one built from a unique design. And when you put them all side by side like this, their distinct blueprints become crystal clear.
I mean, this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? Down south, you've got profit driving a tobacco economy that depends on slavery. Up north, religion forges these societies of small family farms. In the middle, trade and tolerance create this incredibly diverse new world. And then there's Quebec, all about extracting resources for a king an ocean away. 4 completely different societies, all growing on the same continent.
So here's the big takeaway. America didn't start as one single unified idea, not even close. It began as a collection of really different regional cultures, each with its own founding DNA, its own vision for the future. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. With such profoundly different blueprints from day one, was the conflict that would eventually come, whether between each other or with a distant king, was it all just inevitable?